Mark Bare Naked Willie, what is happening, brother?
Dave Cooper live 6 days a week. Welcome to Building Science BS Friday.
Yeah, I love it. What another great show that we have lined up for everybody today. This is going to be amazing. And Mark, you just keep on bringing it, man. I mean, you're just killing it with the guests and the people that are coming on the show. So super, super pumped. I'm telling you. I mean, I can't stand it, man. First
and foremost, Dave, I hope there's a gentleman at PGH named Brian Cooper that's watching, because this is right up his alley and whatever one comes to him as well. So happy Friday to you, Brian.
Yeah, happy Friday. Yeah, I left him a message. I said, you got to join this conversation. These folks are going to hit it off. All right, everybody, listen, we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. And why are we live on Twitch?
Because Greg Ugaldi, Mr. NAHB Rockstar, says that's where all the cool kids hang out, and we're bringing construction, offsite, and building science to the younger generations so the rest of us can hand off the torch, brother.
That's right. That's right. You know what's fun? Prior to the conversation with our guest, we had a little bit of a conversation, and they said, you know, are we preaching to the choir? Like, tell us a little bit about your show. And I sat there and I said, you know, not at all. This is what's fun about it. We're bringing the gospel together with the Catholics and the, you know, I mean, we're bringing the universe together here for everybody to learn about building science and what we do. And that's what's making this show so much fun, Mark. And I'm really looking forward to getting this one started today. So,
Dave, I'm going to add to that. While you and I are agnostic, as they say, the other part is we share a soapbox and we share a megaphone and we share a set of loudspeakers with a big ass amplifier. And it's an announcement to the offsite world and to the building science world that 95% of the marketplace needs a voice. So, Dave, you and I joined each other a couple nights this week, a couple afternoons this week with an incredible conference, and happy to have deconstruction, the topic for the first time ever.
Right here on Building Science BS Friday. All right, so before we bring these two high energy people in, we have a special guest, do we not?
Oh, and our audience recognizes her. And I think something tells me that our presenters and our friends today, I think they know who this person is too, Dave.
You think so? Well, who doesn't know this person? I mean, it's hard not to know this person. She's been on the show a few times now. She's full of energy. And man, she's kind of leading the way in a lot of great things in building science and green and energy efficiency and you name it. All right. So I think without further ado, we should bring in Katie Cluzy. All right. Hey, what's happening, Katie? How are you today?
Hi, guys. How are you? Happy Friday.
Yeah. Happy Friday to you as well. Hey, Katie, you've been on the show a few times. It's always a pleasure having you back. We always love your enthusiasm and your excitement. I cannot wait to hear what you're about to say for this introduction.
Well, I'm very excited to be the special guest today and be the surprise introducers. So I've known Blue Earth Deconstruction for a while, so I'm very excited to introduce today and also be back. I've been a fly on the wall in the LinkedIn chat on the past few episodes, so thanks for having my face back.
Yeah.
Katie, before you give the introductions, well, it's not just your face; it's the army, right, of IGA you carry, not just in Illinois, but beyond. Can you tell us some events and some things you're working up for 2021?
Oh, yes.
You it in 2020.
Oh, Mark, I'm so glad you asked. Thank you. I'm cooking up some really fun stuff for 2021. And now that I know that I'm going to be for a while, I'm excited to have a bigger audience and be able to bring speakers from all over the place. And my next couple that I'm doing, I'm starting a building decarb tech series that I'm going to host on the 24th and March 3rd. And I'm partnering with Friends to the North in Canada to introduce our members to some really cool products and services and technology helping around decarb that's right out of Canada. So I'm excited to talk about some energy stuff on the 24th, and also really some low carb, low carb diet, I guess, for your building on the March 3rd as well. And I believe Mark agreed to be my moderator for March 3rd. So,
oh no, oh no,
more Mark.
Dave, it's funny what she said there. Decarb. What is a carbon disaster? Katie, was a term that Dave and Jennifer and I came up with, and we just had a wonderful episode with Anthony Pack, as I shared, dealing with embodied carbon and operational carbon, and sometimes Dave says, "Well, I don't know something about it." In this case, I called him out on him. I'm like, Dave, you're running up and down the ladder with your carbon terminology. It was wonderful. And it's great that you guys are bringing that forward, Katie. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Katie, just in my simple mind format, when you're decarbon, just give me an example what decarbon means for the people out there that don't understand, right? Because everybody's used to hearing the carbon footprint, but we have recoined that as of our 2 Fridays ago to carbon disaster. So, decarb just means what in a very simple term?
I think that, in simple terms, it's like slowly reducing the reliance on fossil fuels that are fueling your building. So, it might be a pathway to decarb, and maybe it's slowly looking at ways that you can remove that from a building over time. But when you're looking at new construction, it might mean looking at opportunities to not even involve that to begin with. So we're kind of looking at both paths, and there's really awesome technology that exists out there already that can help on that journey. It's not something we're waiting for to be invented. So this series that I'm doing is kind of diving into that tech a little bit more and bringing more awareness to what's out there on the market and what people could be utilizing in their retrofit projects and their new construction projects.
I love it.
The embodied energy of our buildings, Blue Earth Deconstruction has a perfect topic on it. So get started with the intros, Miss Katie.
All right, so
deconstruction. Go ahead.
I know, a lot of D right now. Blue Earth Deconstruction. I'm really excited to bring them on. I was really excited to host a program with them last year, and then the pandemic happened, and we wanted to do something in person. So really excited that you guys are here in this forum to talk virtually about deconstruction practices, which are so important. And I know that there's so many great partners that they work with job training and the ability to resale the deconstruction materials within the market here. And so I'm really happy to hear more about it today. But I'm gonna look on my nice notes to make sure that I give all the accolades and praise to both Steve and Colleen, who are going to be joining us today. So Steve is the president of Blue Earth Deconstruction. He co-founded it with his wife, Erica. He loves to problem solve and make things better, and sees innovative business as a tool to protect the longevity of the planet and affect real change. He likes to play and travel with Erica and their daughters, Ella and Erin. So I'm excited to bring Steve on. And then Colleen, I've known forever, and I miss seeing her at all of our events and all of the networking where we scheme up cool things that are going to happen in the future. So Colleen's been a driving force protecting the planet in her personal and professional life. She recently has gone full-time into working on environmental projects. But before that was founded the coalition and started the legislation to introduce the Chicago Plastic Bag Ordinance. And eventually is now the Director of Operations for Blue Earth Deconstruction and has been with the company since 2018. She's on the board of environmental nonprofit organizations like 7 Generations Ahead. And she's an avid supporter of Illinois Green and used to come to all of our things in person when we had them. So I'm excited to see her face today. She likes to dabble in woodworking and furniture design, lots of hobbies. Always fun to talk to. So thank you, Steve and Colleen, for letting me be your surprise special guest introducer.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, let's bring them in, shall we? What is happening, Colleen and Steve? Great to have you into the show, man. This is going to be a lot of fun. We were talking a little bit offline. My brother does something similar, not exactly the same as you guys in Pittsburgh with deconstruction and reclaiming and repurposing things. So this is going to be a fun show that hits at the heart. And I know his audience is joining us as well to watch what you guys do. So hopefully we can grow your knowledge between Mark's audience, my audience, and Katie's audience. So thanks for being on the show.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having us. Thanks for the intro, Katie. Mark, Dave, this is great. We love to have a chance to be able to talk about this, and especially just, have some interested folks that wanted to hear the story. We love the time. So thanks for having us.
I love it. I love it. Go ahead, Mark.
I just wanted to say, did we surprise you, Colleen?
Yeah. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Colleen.
I haven't seen you in over a year now. I actually just saw the pictures from a Christmas party at Rebuilding Exchange today.
I still have hope that we'll have it there this year.
Yeah.
I love it. We almost have a Brady Bunch thing going on. You're looking up at her and Katie's looking down. This is kind of fun. We're gonna switch some things around first. So, Katie, thank you so much for making the introduction. Hang out with us. We'll bring you back in at the end if you have time. Please wait with us. Steve and Colleen, as always, we want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. And do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or we will call your mother. Others in this instance. So, Steve, we talked about it. You're going to go first on this. So, Steve, the show floor is yours. Go for it.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me. I guess the story starts roughly, it's going to come up on 38 years ago, because originally they were thinking I was going to show up on Valentine's Day, and apparently that night on the East Coast was quite a snowstorm, and my dad continued to dig the car out of 14 inches of snow as it came down. But I decided to hang out for another couple weeks, so that was all for naught. Eventually I showed up, and I hear it was hellacious, but everybody survived, and here we are today. In between then and now, I have touched on just about everything. Decided that after high school, I thought I had enough world experience and personal knowledge that college wouldn't be, necessary. I had it all figured out already, and just went to work and did everything. Everything from bartending to manual labor to wearing a suit and tie every day. And, eventually realized that when I met my wife, her master's degree looked a lot better on the wall than my life experience. And so went back to school, studied business, came out, and really just wanted to find a way to build a business, use it as a tool to do good. I loved companies. One of the first ones that got me interested in finding a way to do good was even just Tom's Shoes, and their way of doing business, but also having a mission at the same time. Separate from a nonprofit, which we work with many of them, but taking a for-profit business and using it as a strategic tool to change things. And we looked and looked and looked and thought we would, kind of figured out the architectural salvage angle. We were going to come in and save all the beautiful woodwork from old homes. Many in my neighborhood continue to get torn down, and we just figured there was a better way, until we saw all these homes that weren't beautiful at all. Mid-century, 1960s, very basic homes that didn't have a lot of architectural use and wouldn't fit in your normal salvage shop. But thought, what happens with those materials? How can there be a way to recapture that value, pull those materials out of the landfill and out of the waste stream, but also have it be financially beneficial to our clients to make the right choice? So instead of, just preaching and saying, hey, we should do this, it's like, how do we solve this problem and just make it work? And we kind of backed our way into it. Eventually, we found our way with our partnerships with the local nonprofits. We work with many of them around Chicago who specialize in reclaimed building materials. And we coordinate all of the kind of tax incentives for our clients so that working with us saves them money while we divert, roughly 90% of what would typically go into a dumpster or landfill out of the waste stream and into the hands of not only the nonprofits, but then reuse after that. And so that was, coming up on, a little over 6 years ago. I think we did the stats the other day. We've done just over 200 projects. And now we've gone from just trying to get somebody to believe in it to what we hear most is, why doesn't everybody do that? And that's what we love to hear, but it also tells us that there's still a lot of work to do because we're barely scratching the surface. And so we work really hard every day to make that happen and just create a better option so that it's the easy way to go.
Dave, you're muted, brother.
Yeah, no, love it, Colleen. So here's the deal, right? You got to top that. So I mean, there's no pressure on you whatsoever. That was a great conversation. Just teasing you, Colleen. Same thing. We want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time, right? Don't leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital. Steve did a great job, or we will call your mother. Go for it. You're up.
All right. I'm going to correct Steve on one thing, because I did do the stats yesterday. We're 277 projects, so it's a little more than just over 200. But as for me, I originally from Michigan. I have a big family, brothers and sisters, and my family's automotive. And so a lot of my background was automotive, and I actually started my career doing that. But I studied photography and nature in college, and I really wanted to be a photographer for National Geographic. So environmental stuff and the planet has always sort of been a driving force in what I care about. And eventually I, was working in automotive, but spending every ounce of my free time doing environmental work. And I slowly shifted over, got involved in Illinois Green, and did a lot of events and volunteer work with them, and got on a lot of boards. Like Katie mentioned, I did the plastic bag ban in Chicago, which was a big accomplishment to try and get rid of all that waste in Chicago. And then I met Steve because my parents were doing a renovation project on a building that they had, and they are less sustainably minded. And so I called them and I said, hey, can I get involved and help with this project? So I called Steve and had him come bid the project. And while he's there, he's walking through the building, and I'm completely geeking out on the process of deconstruction. And at the end of it, I walked outside with him and I said, Steve, I think you need to hire me. And that's how I got involved with deconstruction, because I was passionate about the process and wanted to be involved in something that I could spend full time on, and all of my energy and efforts on, benefits to the planet.
Yeah, I love that. Coming from the automotive industry, I mean, that's, that's a weird shift, being in that your whole life. I'd love to know what that dinner table conversation is like.
Yeah, it's really interesting. But I mean, the main thing that I gained from it was just knowledge about business and the right way to run business. Managing teams and working with people of a variety of personalities, all that stuff is transferable no matter what the industry is. Yeah. But, my dad saw where my actual beliefs and passions were, and it was definitely not in putting cars on the road. So.
Love it. Love it. So we have a presentation that you guys are going to go through today. I see Mark getting ready to jump in. I'm not trying to cut you off. You got something, Mark?
I wanted to say it was really nice, Colleen, how you shared the story of how you and Steve got together. I think I got a phone call from one of you or both of you within a day or two of that, and it's a great partnership. When you see the commitment that both of you have to our building stock and to our marketplace, and then sharing the gifts that you were given for the greater good. Bless your hearts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're a good company.
I love it. I love it. All right, listen. So here we go. You guys have a presentation. Let's start learning about, exactly what it is you guys do in detail. What is the value? Why are you doing it? We know the passion's there, but it's growing, and that's what I'm hearing. Like, there's more and more people interested in this. So however you guys want to jump into what it is you do, that's where we want to go. Because Simon Sinek always says people buy not what you do, they buy why you do it. And in this case, I think it's very true. Steve,
I'm just pulling up the presentation right now, but I'll let Steve run. So give me just 1 second, make sure I do this right.
So, Colleen, I'll buy you a little bit of time. I think getting into the why of why is kind of, and you can pull it up, go ahead, but the why is more of a why not. It just seems kind of silly. And I've been toying with this idea over the past week or so, trying to relate this to have it make sense. And I keep going back to like Legos or Lincoln Logs. When your kid puts together a set of Legos, when they're done, you don't pick it up and throw it in the garbage and then go buy more Legos. You take them apart, put them in the bin, and then they can put them together the next time. And I was thinking, like, you don't do that with a $20 set of Legos. Why would you do it with what is most people's major purchase in their whole life? And so the why is like, there's got to be a better way. We've been entrenched in the way that things go, and people think it's normal, but it's not. It's not normal to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in something to then throw it away when you're done with it. You don't, after you get somewhere, you don't step out of your car and let it keep rolling down the road. You wait for next time. And so a lot of energy was put into getting building materials in the first place. whether it is the lumber industry and the timber industry cutting down and milling wood, or the Kohler factory, manufacturing, fabricating toilets and tubs, hardwood floors, doors, windows, all of those things took time to build. If they're not done, then why get rid of them? And Mark, I'm probably going to say it a couple times during this. You had something great to say the other day of there is no way. Like, even if you don't need it anymore, there's nowhere to put it that it's not going to come back, whether it's in this lifetime or kids or grandkids. Somebody's going to pay the price. And so the why of what we're doing is to say, hey, we found a solution. We developed a solution that solves this problem, and it's a win-win-win for everybody involved. So Colleen, I'll let you run with the presentation a little bit, but that kind of gets us started on the why.
Beautiful. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, Steve, you go ahead and talk. I'll run through some of it till we get to the environmental stuff.
All right. So I won't read directly, but obviously, this is the alternative to traditional demolition. People want to renew their homes. People want to remodel. People want to build a new home. And listen, I am purely red, white, and blue American. I believe people should be free to do that. But why not make it easy to still be responsible with that? There's a way to do that where you can have new, but also give the things that you don't want over to reuse so that somebody else who could use them, can put them to use. It doesn't have to get thrown away. So we go in and we salvage all the reusable materials in remodel and full teardown projects. We've done everything from a bathroom smaller than the room I'm sitting in right now to a 10,000 square foot house. We've done tens of thousands of square feet of commercial space as well. But really think about anything besides drywall, plaster, ceramic tile that's already been installed. All the rest of a house can be saved. And so what we do is we worked it out so that there's an economic benefit to our clients to say, hey, we're going to save everything from the project. You're going to get a clean slate. So the framer and the plumbers and the hardwood floor guy and the electrician can all come in here without having to clean up after us. But also we're going to make sure that these things go to local nonprofits. And we work with virtually all of them in Chicagoland. All of them have an appetite for more. And that's the thing that's funny is no matter how much we have to do, there's still room for more. And we're barely scratching the surface. These stats, we read them all the time, and I think we get a little numb to them. But this is pretty serious. 90% of C&D waste is demolition. And I can't even fathom what 600 million tons looks or feels like. But think about every garbage truck you see, every dump truck driving down the highway. 50% of the stuff that goes in landfills is C&D waste.
Now, C&D is construction and demolition waste?
Yeah, construction demolition. So you think about it. I mean, and you guys have been in the building industry forever. Even when you've got a new build, how many 6-foot 2x4s, cutoffs? Oh, this window didn't have the right tint on it. Just the dumpster's the answer for everybody. And that's just crazy. There is a way where you can do it and actually not lose money doing it. You can actually make money. So that's where we want to say, hey, clients, you can make money doing it. But this fourth bullet point is what drives me nuts. Is that we're throwing out more lumber every year than what is cut down in new timber. It's crazy. If we can actually reharvest what's already out there, why are we cutting down new trees? And look, I understand we're going to need some new stuff, but why not take advantage of what we've already poured energy and time and resources into getting? And then you just look at how big this industry is and why we're seeing so much of our waste stream be C&D. $1.5 trillion is what the yearly spend is in construction. And that's, last year being the COVID year, that's a lot of money being spent, especially in a country where a lot of people are hard up for money. I mean, we're still doing a lot of construction.
So for us, slide, Steve, the part where you started off saying where we've become numb or as they say, comfortably numb, right? That's just looking like a figure. Oh, more data points, right? Next slide. And thank you for emphasizing the critical numbers and the critical, what do we call it, Dave? Carbon disaster.
Carbon disaster.
Carbon disaster. Holy shit, if that isn't the best term I've heard in my life. Those numbers are what I would have liked to see prior, and I wasn't familiar with them. So bringing that to the table, I have to think that the market, our households, and certainly the listeners today feel the weight of that. If you don't, read it 10 times and tell me you get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Just try and chat. But so now we come back to so the difference for us, and when we get into the stats for deconstruction, when we're working on a project, 85 to 90% of those materials do not even go into the waste stream the first time. And now to kind of tie the numbers together, our first project was one of those 1960s, ugly, nothing very special about it house. And it was actually the neighbors bought it because they wanted to put a detached garage on the lot next door. And we get that. We see that stuff all the time. But there were 100 trees worth of lumber in that 1,600 square foot house. When we broke down the board feet of what we were able to reclaim out of it, 100 trees in a typical average house. So that's what we're talking about. When somebody says, oh, it's just faster to bring the excavator in. Oh, why would I do that? Who cares? Think about it. That's 100 trees right there.
Wow.
And that's how much lumber we're talking about. And that's not even getting into the other materials. Obviously, I think a lot of people see scrappers running around. There's clearly a lot of metal in every house that can be, recycled. And a lot of that does make its way out of the waste stream. But it's amazing what goes into these houses that get treated as throwaway because we're just used to it. But then getting into it, out of all the demolition going on, we're not even 1% of the projects that happen and what we see going on, especially around Chicago. There's just a lot of room for more of this work to take place, and that's where we put in a ton of work to make that happen.
Steve, does that number when you talk about the board feet in there for the ratio of trees, is that inclusive of what we use for sheathing, roofing, and plywood for our floors, or is that the framing and joist and truss material?
So on that particular metric right there, it kind of depends on what that actual, like the sheeting and the subfloor is. Plywood sometimes can be difficult. We typically reclaim that for us, and it doesn't kind of enter into these stats. We reuse it. We've got a lot of subfloor holes to patch. But that is just the framing lumber. And then it's easier for us to count when we've got usually like either a 1x6 subfloor. There was still plenty of that kind of 1-inch material in there as well. So it is really just, structural framing. And typically when you get like an older subfloor. But yeah,
I knew the answer, but I wanted to hear it because what people don't realize in those pre-70s houses, right? Pre-plywood, pre-OSB, the walls, as you said, or the floor, as you said, were 1x6s, 1x8s, 1x10s, whatnot, and they were predominantly 1, not 3/4, right? And then the wall sheathing were 1 by itself, and those materials are old growth, wide stock, beautiful specimens that do not grow today. So I think it's important to note beyond the structural, that sheathing and all that, it's just beauty. I mean, it's you'd almost think that it grows on trees. It's so beautiful.
Mark, you're absolutely right. I mean, that was when lumber was true lumber, right? A 1x3 or 1x6 or 1 was truly 1 inch by 8 inches or 1 inch by 6 inches. Not, we still call it that, but we're going to save some money and cut it down by 1/4 inch all the way around, right? That's kind of what happened.
You take it one step further, as you guys know. You have your drywall houses, you have your plaster houses, and you have your plaster houses with drywall over them. God forbid, how many tons that weighs, but those lath strips are incredible. They're typically a fir. They are typically 1/4 or more, and about 2 inches wide. And God bless it if there isn't a million things you could do with that. So I think all that is important to bring up because a lot of people, when they think about construction demolition, Steve, they think about what they see on reality TV, someone ripping down a cabinet and going, look what I did. And someone hitting one hammer through drywall and say, look what I did. Oh no, there's layers upon layers of great material.
And on top of that, Mark, a lot of people say, when I get on calls with people and they're asking about what we do, I say we're a deconstruction company and they just assume that means demolition. And I always stop them and say, no, demolition, the literal definition of demolition is destruction. So that's actually the opposite of what we do, you know, and they think it's architectural salvage. And, you know, we do way more than taking the fancy, you know, corbels and the nice things that people want to put back in their brand new homes. There's way more life in a building than just, you know, those unique architectural salvage things.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So, and maybe you're going to get into this in this conversation. I'm a homeowner. I want to destroy my building for whatever reason, or, you know, demolition, our building. I speak to you, say, well, we're not going to demolish your building. We're going to deconstruct your building. And I'm going to say to you, all right, why? What's the value in it for me other than saving the planet? We all know a lot of this comes down to dollars and cents for people, especially in the home building market today. And maybe you're going to get into this later, but I definitely would love to hear how you approach a customer, an end user, and we got several of them watching today, on what the value to them is versus, well, here's the steps. So
there's plenty of slides on that, Dave. It's coming up. You perfect segue. Keep going, Colleen.
Well, you can show the next slide.
All right, let me put it back.
You're going to love it. Great cue up, Dave.
The next slide is why choose deconstruction. We actually have a couple of different categories, but one of them with the graphic in the corner is the planet. I mean, that's, you know, the driving force for me in particular is the work, you know, so that we can do to save the planet. So I'm going to read this from my phone because I wrote it down here. To, you know, considering the greenhouse gas emissions that go into the life cycle of a set of, you know, wood kitchen cabinets. Now, I'm not an expert, but I just wrote down my notes here and I have 11 different steps that I thought would be relevant. You take the crews and materials to a forest to cut the trees down. How much energy does it take to cut down and load those trees onto a truck? Then drive the trees to a mill. The energy to mill the trees, the energy to transport that to a warehouse, and then the energy to transport to a facility where the cabinets are made. The energy to make the cabinets, then ship the cabinets to the house where they're going to be installed, and then the energy to tear the house down, the energy to load the dumpsters, and the energy to send it to a landfill. And so, you know, that's kind of the main point. Like, we're talking about, this is just an example because lumber is an easy to envision, you know, concept to talk about, but it's for the life cycle for every single thing in a building. It's way more than just, you know, a piece of wood. And how much less energy is being used by making something once than making it, you know, every single time somebody wants to redo their kitchen every 10 years. And so, you know, like we said, every year we throw out more lumber than we cut down, you know, conserve the finite resources. And then I really like this stat that I actually found yesterday. Between 2009 and 2014, the tree cover in the US in urban and community areas declined by 0.7%, which is roughly 36 million trees. You know, I think some of these stats sometimes can really kind of help you see the benefit of the work that we're doing when you can see what can be saved.
I mean, that's amazing. So I talk a lot. So, you know, when I think about this, and this is something we've talked about, Mark, as well as, you know, part of the deconstruction that you guys are doing, and maybe it's later in the slide. I haven't seen the slide deck all the way through other than loading it. What about, as the deconstruction is over, the education on how to design to deconstruct for future projects, like you said, or not deconstruct at all because it's so pliable to be able to do upgrades, additions, or whatever, you know, the world changes. It is what it is. I just wonder, if you guys have any conversations on that ever, as far as how do you design to, it's probably not good for business, right? How do you design?
The philosophy on that is often termed cradle to cradle.
That's right.
And they insist that mixed materials aren't joined. So you're not going to insert a glue, right? Because now, how would you remove the glue from those different materials? And you would often have a connection, be a cold connection with something such as a screw. So it could be backed out versus the nail is ripped away. So there's some procedural methods of material combinations, as well as the open concept of the structure holds the building, but the interior partitions can be interchangeable. So you don't have to go through the massive things of, I moved that wall and now I'm missing that board right there. You know, those type of things that come up. So intentionality might be the word we're looking for. Doing your best from the get-go.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. All right, back to it. Sorry.
Yeah,
No,
did you have something to say?
If you don't mind, I just want to kind of go on a little bit of a tangent here. This comes back to being like the local movement. And that's more of a point of this when we talk about everything Colleen went through, of what all goes into it. And you think about a lot of it being transportation and processing.
Yeah.
When it comes to any of these materials, anything that's in your home pretty much went through that cycle that Colleen laid out. But what we do is we want those materials to actually be able to stay in that community. We want to see more of this going on in the communities, and especially the communities that need it. We can work on the North Shore, and we do a lot of white glove, very high-end, high-rise work in Chicago. We spend a lot of time in some of the more affluent communities because that's where a lot of this work is taking place. But I would like to see a lot of things going on and centers for reuse to take place on the west side and the south side of the city, to where those buildings where there are a lot of vacant buildings and a lot of buildings that have fallen into disrepair, I would like to see us be able to come up with a better solution to have those buildings be deconstructed, but those materials stay in the community, so that not only is the waste not accumulating in different places, but those materials are available to the people in those communities to be able to take care of their houses and be able to have an upgrade, or if they need a new toilet, they don't have to go buy a brand new one at Home Depot. They can go to a local reuse center and get one for pennies, so that actually enriches the local community. You can provide more jobs for people in that community. You can keep those materials and actually lower price materials and make them more available, while also clearing the space for redevelopment. So when we talk circular, this is it. I mean, this is what the circular economy is. We don't have to create it. We just need to start doing it.
Hey, Steve, what's more green than going to the Rebuilding Exchange and getting an avocado green toilet from 1965?
or the pink. I love it. I love it. I know we want to keep going, but part of what we do here is interact with our audience. I mean, you see my eyes probably going that way. It is lit up right now with just comments and hellos. So let's get through a few of those if you guys can. You guys good for that? You want to say hi to everybody?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's do it. All right, so we got George Ryman. Happy BS Friday from Phoenix, Arizona, with an F.
Dave, he spelled Phoenix with an F. I have to say, I like how you spelled Friday, George. But we have a strict rule that you have to get the F out on BS Fridays. You have to use PH.
I love it. And the whole Phoenix thing, it's happy hour early in Arizona is what I think's going on there.
It's the only part of the country that's warm right now.
I know it. Hi, all. Looking forward to a great show today. Patty.
Hi, Patty.
I love it. We also have Damien. Greetings from Dublin, Ireland, guys. Hey,
awesome.
Love Ireland. Love Ireland. We got Chris Rouse, Deconstruct to Reconstruct. Looking forward to this one.
There we go.
That's a great one, Chris. Oh, Peter, look at this.
What's up, Peter? Dave and Mark, you're doing a fine job to relay the information to the younger generation. Well, we appreciate that. We work hard every day at doing it. So, and of course, Sean St. Omar, happy Friday. He didn't get Friday right, Mark. You got to give him some man.
Sean only knows how to use numbers, Dave, like 4, 7, 5. That's all he's got.
Buzz Holitzer. Hi, Buzz. Happy Friday to you. You still out there snowmobiling? I think he was snowmobiling last time.
He probably is, if it's not happy hour in Grand Rapids.
All right. Does anybody know this individual right here? Dylan Ngui? What is happening, Dylan?
So, Stephen Colleen, Dylan is in Brooklyn. And the family practice, what they do, there's a lot of those row houses, right, in Brooklyn with the party walls, and they specialize in those buildings and saving them, right, converting them to passive house. And Dylan has the distinction, until someone steals it, of being the youngest passive house consultant designer in North America. He's a high schooler. He's been on the show, and he's awesome. So I hope, Dylan, that someone steals your title and go back to class. You shouldn't be on YouTube.
Yeah, Dylan. Tell us. Put it in the comments. At what age did you become the youngest Passive House
I
Consultant.
think he was 15. I think he was 15.
Yeah, can't remember. All right, good. Buzz Holitzer says, Feeney, big name in auto in the Great Lakes state. Love it. Let's keep going here.
Shout out to Dan.
Moving down the line.
Someone did their homework on you, Colleen.
We're a big auto family.
Ian Willie says 44.5 trillion board feet of lumber. Man. Peter Molinar's with us. Needs a new philosophy. Oh, come on. Jennifer says deconstruction helps offset our carbon disaster mark. All right, guys.
T-shirt there, Jennifer.
Adam White's with us. What's happening, Adam? Cambridge in the house. Chris Roush is also buildings as material banks. Such a great concept. We got Amy Marks in the house as well. What is happening? Amy Marks, the queen of prefab. So
yeah, wow. Wonderful. Thanks, Amy.
Always good to see Amy join us. We have Eric Schmidt, Sawzall, and Sledgehammer, he says.
The sledgehammers do have their purposes, and I guarantee you there's a lot of Sawzall blades being used by these deconstruction professionals.
Yeah, love it. Peter Molinar says,
every project, Colleen asked, do we really need a sledgehammer? Just at least one.
At least one. I love it. I was on a job recently with Bensonwood, and they have a clown hammer. You ever seen the big orange clown hammers? When you're doing stabilized wall systems, it's a big, and it's like orange, if I remember correctly, and it's basically to tap the walls into place when you get them all lined up. They call it the clown hammer.
Yeah, you do the same for timber framing, right? It's a large wooden mallet, and you really got to unload.
For sure. All right, we're going to fly through these last ones. Speed round. Even when the deconstruct dimensional lumber is processed through a jointer planer, the result is the common size for new lumber.
That's exactly it. Yep.
Patty Lloyd, will you talk about your channels for the deconstructed materials?
Absolutely. We'll get to that, Patty.
All right. So I think we're going to, let me just look real quick. I think we're going to stop it right there. Patty Lloyd, you will be next up when we come back. Let's hop back into this.
All right. Steve, you want to take it?
Sure. So kind of getting into what Patty asked is what's the channel? Most of our projects end up being where we coordinate a donation to a local nonprofit. So we work with many in the Chicagoland area. Anybody in town will probably know where to find it. You've got Reuse Depot, Rebuilding Exchange, Habitat for Humanity Restore, Evanston Rebuilding Warehouse. There are a lot of different places you can go, and a lot of people end up doing the tour to see. They all work pretty much cooperatively with one another and love, sending people back and forth to find what they're looking for. But what we found is that most often our clients benefit from being able to take a donation, take a tax credit or a tax deduction for donating the materials. And so these are things where they would pay somebody to not only remove them, but also pay to have them hauled away. In our case, they pay us to remove them, and then they get paid back because we recapture the value of those materials. So, like we said, this is the current model is unsustainable, not because it's a buzzword, just because it cannot sustain. We cannot continue to do what we're doing. So why not solve the problem now, which is taking that economic incentive and saying, I think, and Colleen, correct me if our new stats say something different, but our typical project, the average write-off was $50,000. And that's granted, we do projects, like I said, everywhere from a small bathroom to a 10,000 square foot house, but it averages out where people write off 50 grand. That's a big deal. And not only is it a big deal for them, but then you also have to think, we have an IRS certified appraiser come up with that value. So that's what those materials are actually worth. So that's $50,000 in milled, fabricated, delivered, installed materials that you can either pay somebody to throw in a dumpster, or you can get that value back as you go in and remodel or build a new house. And I can't think of any other contractor that's actually going to put more, put money back in the budget or find a way to get you paid back for, things that you own. Right? We just thought it was kind of silly. So since there is no way, we want that net cost to be either lower than traditional demolition, or in some cases, we're able to coordinate where folks actually come out ahead to where after we do our work, the tax write-off not only covers our work, but also gives them some extra money for an upgrade or lower their overall cost. And so the main point, even though everybody on here I know cares about the environment, we're trying to work on the rest of the world, which means we've got an economic incentive that says you're going to save money doing this. And it's the actual value of it. You don't have to wonder who's going to show up for a sale. You don't have to worry about people coming from Craigslist to, look at, your sink or cabinets and do they want to buy it? You don't have to worry about any of that. This is, hey, we're going to get you this much money for it. We're also going to do the work. We're going to leave a clean slate so that whatever the next trade is in here after us says, wow, I don't have to clean up after the demo guys. And our GCs that we work with don't have to manage our people all day because we actually bring in skilled tradespeople to come in and do the work. So we want to solve. Anytime somebody comes up with an idea or a reason to say, oh, well, maybe not now, we're going to fix that so that we don't hear that again. And so we try to come up with, we can come up with as many reasons as somebody says not to do it. We'll come up with a reason or a solution for that.
The building stock in Chicago, I don't know building stock in other markets, but we certainly get into the balloon framing and the stick framing builds. But as you talked about those materials, Stephen, it's also a lot of the buildings have the coveted Chicago brick, right? And then you have these radiators, and not all of them are pretty. Some of them are truly desired for scrap, but some of them are ornamental pieces that do not exist today. And there's a few facilities in Chicago that have yards of these wonderful radiators. So it goes beyond the wood. You have those other precious materials, not to mention wonderful doorknobs and maple cabinets that aren't made like that today. They're just beautiful.
Yeah, and so there's all that pretty stuff, all the stuff that you're going to see on our Instagram, all the stuff that you're going to see on coming out from anybody else saying, "Oh, this is great and reclaimed," and that's the easy, that's the sexy part of it. I want to get back to that 1960s house that when somebody's ready to knock it down, everybody says, "Yeah, it kind of makes sense," or that 1980s Kohler toilet, or the very basic kind of pressboard cabinets. If we just don't take the sledgehammer to it, if we don't pull the HGTV treatment to it, we can just remove it, put it on a truck, and it can be somebody's basement cabinets. It could be somebody's garage cabinets. Or if we really want to be thoughtful, again, looking at these communities that could use the help, that could be an upgrade in somebody else's house. We really have to remember that there's value in just taking the extra step. We can do some good. And that gets into this slide. Deconstruction provides 7 times as many jobs as traditional demolition. And I've told Colleen 100 times how much, creating jobs is a way for people to make something sound really good. But let's look at, a 2,000 square foot house, whether it's stick built or masonry or whatever. I can have 6 guys work on that for weeks or a month. That employs people in this community for weeks on end. Or you can hire 1 excavator and 1 dump truck driver, and they'll be employed for 2 days. Now, our system saves people money, keeps these out of landfills, and we've actually, raised the standard in our communities and provided people with good living wage to work. Again, I'm preaching to my own choir. This just works. And here's some of the materials that get saved. And these are things that don't have to go into a landfill. Think about everything besides drywall, plaster, tile, which are things that get separated out even later in the waste stream too. But cabinets, counters, appliances, windows, great hardwood floors, architectural elements, light fixtures, lumber, brick, like you said. You can go through the nonprofits that work in this. You can go through lumber resellers. There are a lot of great organizations that just strictly do reclaimed lumber. But the point is where does that come from? And it comes from making the choice to deconstruct instead of demo.
So we've got 3 project examples. I'll let Steve talk through them because some of these are before my tenure at the company, but it's a couple different projects as examples of types of work that we do.
So this is kind of a run through. This house was 3,700 square feet in Chicago, and it was actually ended up being one of Nate Kipnis's projects. They put a beautiful, environmentally friendly house on the space, and but before that, this house was there, and it had been added on to and remodeled and changed, and who knows who built it? I mean, once you open up the walls on these houses, you see not only the empty whiskey bottles and beer cans that went into the construction of it, but also just the many times where you got, you know, kind of Saturday projects that end up being permanent. We were able to take this entire house down. 90% of it went into reuse instead of a landfill. And the demo of this house, what's typically the demo line item, was under $13,000. And that's the incentive we're talking about. I mean, that can be a 5-figure savings to the client of what it would typically take to wreck this house. But all of that material ended up going to rebuilding exchange instead of going to a landfill. And so it's that thinking forward where, hey, it's good for right now, but there's another couple of dump truck loads not going to local landfills. Here's what we call surface deconstruction. Somebody just wanted new kitchen cabinets, counters, and appliances. We come in, we remove the old kitchen, take it to a Habitat restore, and after they paid us, they still had about $1,700 in excess savings. So we come in, we remove the old kitchen, and they've got, you know, between $1,500 and $2,000 in additional, you know, money outside of what they paid us. That's with the new kitchen.
It was actually a beautiful kitchen, right? That's the whole thing. Yeah. When people think about deconstruction, they're like, oh, well, that needed to be tore out. Well, here's an instance where it did not, right? And so I love the fact that there's always a skewed perception of what you're encountering. And this just shows that someone probably bought the house and they have different taste, and voila, they're going to have what they want, but now someone else can have what was there because of the salvage aspect.
And here's what's cool. That house with the kitchen, I just got the call the other day. They're getting new windows. We're going to go and get those old windows and make sure that they get donated. So once somebody's been through the process, we hear from them again. All of our business is either repeat, referral, or somebody seeking us out, which I think goes to the work that we do and hopefully the reputation that we're building. People come back for more, which is the greatest compliment we can get.
Well, you know, so all right. Soapbox time. One of the things that what you just said is so valuable to a lot of businesses out there, right? Because who would think that you'd be a repeat business? But we have a saying that, you know, in our world, even as home builders and offsite construction, is without repeat business, you're a startup company every day, right? You're always having to sell the next job. So just the fact that people are reusing you and you're reusing their stuff says a lot. So I really just wanted to put that quote in there, because when you get referrals that come back to you or people you've done work with, that says everything. And I think that's what's making y'all so successful. And I said y'all because I was just down in Alabama, and that's what they say there.
No, thank you for that.
Love it.
And here's actually one of our very early projects. We worked for SCHI-CAT, the Chicago Center for Arts and Technology, to clear their building down in the medical district. Here we did your typical kind of white box, vanilla box clean out of a commercial space so they could build their school there. It was incredible, the amount of material. This was an old factory, so they had the old hardwood floors. They had the old sliding fire doors. These offices here built with just the incredible woodwork. But it had been, you know, redone, and you see the metal studs there, and you see some of the typical commercial stuff. We cleared out everything. If it could be reused, it was reused. If it couldn't be reused, it was recycled. The amount of truckload, the truckload to dumpster ratio was just actually one of our proudest moments with how many things we were able to save from this and get diverted from the waste stream.
Those fire doors, by the way, are one of the most coveted things in architectural worlds. Those things are just full of beautiful patina.
And they had the pulleys and the weights on them. I mean, it's just a huge door, but you can just slide it right open with ease. I mean, they were perfect. We saved all of that. But here's what's interesting. And we work with a lot of nonprofits that, you know, again, most of what we do is a tax incentive. And so some nonprofits can't do it, but our price was actually better than the demo company who also bid for the job. But looking at, we had the appraisers just take a look at it and say, hey, what's this material worth? If we were able to, you know, kind of recapture that value and have it pay off for them, there was $195,000 worth of reusable materials in this building. So that's just under 30,000 square feet of commercial space. That's incredible. That's money that people in this country have already spent. It's money that has already been paid for these things. That's already been created, whether that's in a factory or in a mill. And the work's already done. let's just take it apart and use it again. It's great stuff, you know, and if it can't be reused, then at least recycle it. You know, at the very least, let's get it into a form that we can use.
Love it. Love it. I have an interesting question. We're not on a wood slide right now, Steve and Colleen, but there's an incredible amount of denailing that happens with the 1x and 2x and such. I know it's painstaking to put it on, but I've often thought of the challenge of when the sweep up happens, right? When the little magnet cart goes around for picking it up. Wouldn't it be interesting if we threw all that in 55-gallon drums and saw how many freaking nails that we had, and then take it one step further. All those nails were driven by hand, right?
Oh yeah.
And most of those 1x were actually processed on the block or the blocks in which the construction first began. So it's incremental what you do to see the dissection and the layering and the moments in time that the craftsmen were involved in putting the whiskey bottles in the walls before they put in the windows.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things. I mean, we see plenty of projects. We like to tell people that all the secrets are going to come out. You know, we're going to find something in the wall. There's probably going to be a surprise because you never know what's back there. And so we see a lot of the whiskey bottles, but you also see some incredible craftsmanship. And you have to appreciate the fact that it was done 100 years ago. And you have to imagine what was available to them in terms of tools. And the fact that these homes last 100 years means that the materials are good. And I've been in some leaners, you know, I've been in a couple where you feel like you're a little seasick walking through it, but we can get those things and recover. I'm going to just give you one tip in case anybody out there wants to do any denailing. Grab yourself some Homer buckets from Home Depot because the 55-gallon drums are going to be impossible to move. But we're doing exactly what you said. Our denailing crew, after we run the magnet around, we're loading up the buckets and, you know, just seeing what accumulates in a year. And we'll be able to report back on that because we've already got our collection of buckets and we're running out of room.
Steve, I've probably done 1,000 kitchens in Chicago. And our technique as installers, as carpenters, is we always wrote our name and the date on the back of the cabinet that we put up. And my old partner Fred, he did most of the doors because I get annoyed doing doors because there's a lot of doors in Chicago houses, and he wrote his name on every single jamb he ever installed. So. It's just interesting. I can't wait for the day where you send me a picture and you're like, "Hey, Mark, found your cabinet. You did a shitty job installing."
It came out like nothing. No, but you see that's something that I hope is going on now, and I think that the level of work that went into construction, not to take anything away from anybody doing it now, but you've got to think, without modern technology, a lot of beautiful things were built. And they were built with a lot more blood, sweat, and tears because we didn't have the technology to make it the way that we do now. But we find those signatures. We find those notes. We find those painted over or wallpapered over, you know, wall coverings. And it's great. It's a few times a year. Or we find that that newspaper that was used as insulation and just shoved in the wall. But people put the time and energy into it. And so doing this, you know, yeah, it's a little romantic, but I feel like we honor the work that was put in by generations before to say, hey, let's not just smash this and throw it away. Let's take this out and let it live on because it can. And we think it's right.
There's a new T-shirt. Jennifer's in the background, Steve, and the new T-shirt is Deconstruction. It's romantic.
Love it. So, Steve, Colleen, let me ask you this. Are you taking all these, deconstructing all these buildings? Where in the world are you putting all the stuff when you take it apart, right? I'm sure, do you have a place it goes to right away? Or you guys have mass warehouse and a retail center where people can come in and buy this? Walk us through, because, deconstruction, I'm guessing, is only one part of your business.
Well, it's one part of our process, but our business, we operate as a contractor. We do not, on purpose, we do not receive any of the materials. I don't carry an inventory. I don't take anything in. Blue Earth doesn't resell anything. That way our clients know that we're not only interested in the architectural salvage. Our clients know that we're not just coming in to take the pretty stuff and leave a mess. We come in and they hire us to clear a space, and we just worked out a better process for them. And so all of the stuff that we take out goes to, and again, there's a small fraction of our projects where something different might happen, or you know, a family member will take some materials, or they're going to be reusing them. A lot of times our clients will say, hey, can you take this out so I can put it in my new house? Yeah. But we typically we're running multiple trucks a day to either Reuse Depot, Rebuilding Exchange, Habitat Restore, Evanston Rebuilding Warehouse. We will work with lumber brokers. We will work with some of the brick resellers on making sure, even if whatever makes sense for the client, whatever makes the project feasible to save everything, we're going to work on every avenue possible. And so all of those things can be found at all those different warehouses. Some things probably find their way to places like Salvage One or any of the other, you know, kind of more higher end architectural salvage places. But that's where all of it goes. We operate as the contractor, so we can say, hey, we're not just, you know, coming in grabbing cool stuff to put in our warehouse. We carry insurance. All of our employees are actually employed and covered by insurance. We, you know, have we're adhering to a contract, not just bringing things in, where our job is to clear the space and make way for the next trade to come in without having a mess. And so the deconstruction part of it and the reclaim is part of our process, but the end result is the same as what they would expect as far as quality or craftsmanship from anybody else they're going to come in or have come in and work on their project.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Hey, let's go to the comments. You guys want to do some more comments?
Sounds great.
All right, let's get into this. So Damien says, so every community should have good old fashioned salvage yards. Love it.
Why not? There's probably more than one.
Yeah, exactly.
Eric Schmidt says urban ore. Comment.
Oh, that's a good term.
I like it.
That's a really good term.
All right. Ian Willie asks, are you all, here we go, there's my y'all, aware of the Chicago Resource Center, the Resource Center, chicago.org?
I believe they do like recycling and composting. I think that's what that is, who they are.
Yeah. Don't know. Moving on down the line here. So Peter Molinar says, that's Steve, how large are your crews and how quickly can you deconstruct a building as compared to conventional demolition? I know you covered that a little bit a few minutes ago, but just reiterate.
I want to give a short answer for you, Steve. Hey, Peter, sure. You come from the world of Passive House. It depends.
How much time you got? Yeah, no, it really all depends. Crews can be anything. You know, we never let anybody work alone. So, you know, between 2 and 12 guys on a site. So all depending. And so, again, it depends on our schedule. There are projects that we work on and just figure we'll throw everybody we've got at it if it's big enough and find a way to fit the schedule. If we need an extra week beyond what, you know, demolition would take, then we'll put the people on it to make sure that the project can run. The nice thing about it is we're putting money back in the budget at the same time. So knowing that I'm not going to be able to take down a 2,000 square foot house as quickly as an excavator, to say, hey, why don't we get out in front of this process? We'll put as many people on as we need to be on your schedule, but let's get in there early and plan for this. And you're going to get some money back for that. There's a point to it. And so a lot of people will just say, oh, that makes perfect sense. I can, you know, arrange my schedule to fit that. And we'll put the amount of people on it that we need to.
And the other thing is sometimes people will call us, you know, before they even have the plans for what they want to do with the new space. So we can come in and do the work while they're still sorting out, you know, where each room is going to be and how big it is. So that by the time they actually have their plans done and approved, we're already out of the way.
That's exactly right. The plan and permit process, at least in our market, in it, right? So the deconstruction demolition permit is issued on the ready, and then the drawing and the submission and the zoning, well, that might take a minute. So you do have time. What we don't have the ability to do is lose that embodied carbon, and that's why you must deconstruct.
So yeah, and Mark, I agree with you. You know, I know in my old world of deconstruction in New England, you know, you had to have lead tests, asbestos tests before you were to deconstruct or demolish anything. And then if you did find that, then obviously there's certain procedures one would have to take for that purpose. So, you know, in our neck of the woods, you know, it'd be nice to just walk in and get a, you know, demolition or deconstruct permit, but it doesn't happen very often. You guys run across that, and that's something as a contractor you have to also deal with, right? And if you do have to deal with that, how do you present that to the consumer?
Directly. You know, a lot of old homes have those things in them. And so number one is it all depends on the project, but a lot of that is required in permitting, which again, we're a contractor. We're a licensed wrecking contractor in Chicago. We have to follow that same process. We pull permits on our own. And part of that is an environmental survey that goes in and looks for those things. Yeah. So if those come up, we have an expert do it. For remodeling projects, we are the EPA RRP certification, so we can handle you know, lead paint. We know the containment and PPE required for that, the process to follow for it. But as far as asbestos, we just don't play in that area because we want the experts to do it. But you know, like I said, we function with the same rules and regulations as, you know, any one of the alternative to what we do, what they would be held to.
And the simple philosophy on that is you bag the bag, Dave.
it goes to the same place a lot of times. That's the worst part about it. You're just double bagging it. At least in our neck of the woods, it just, some of it doesn't make sense to me. But that's for another.
The philosophy of these of many projects is once you get that plaster and everything out of the way, now the environment is back to being habitable, right? Because now you're down to the rare wood, and a lot of it, if time allows, could be processed to some degree on site. So bag the bag. That's all I got to tell people. When I took my RRP training, the number one thing they told me was don't test, assume.
I almost thought you said AARP. It's like, you're not that old. All right, we're keep moving here, everybody. All right, Buzz Holitzer, he's actually out boarding, skiing, snowmobile machines. Love it. I love it. All right, moving on down the line. Let's go here. What is the time cost when comparing traditional demolition versus deconstruction? And Mark, you said that already. Julian Bowron, let's get into this one. My house is clad in 16-inch wide, 1 1/4 inch thick, 16-foot long old growth pine boards. All are in nearly perfect condition except for nail holes, built 1885.
Julian, you could take those and put them on the side of the house and we'll send over a truck. That's wonderful.
Just lay them out for us.
They just don't know them like they used to.
Share your email address privately so no one else contacts you, Julian.
Buzz Holitzer, when we tore off our old roof in 4x16 sections, my neighbor cut the 2x8 and 2x4 and built a gambrel barn roof and walls.
Yeah, see, that's something, is that this was what people did for centuries. That's the thing, is what we currently have and the model that we've currently got, that's new. That's not how anybody operated. I mean, go back 100 years, like reuse was the way you did things. And somebody they'd think we're crazy now for the way we treat things. Why would you just throw something away that still had life in it? And I'm not just, we've all been in that house from, either the relative or somebody else who lived through the Depression. You know that there's a certain element of holding on to things. But practically, every town had that area where you had extra stone or extra lumber, or go back to before before the 1400s, when a Native American tribe moved around. They took their teepees down, took them with them, and put them back up. Like, that's just what everybody did. You did it once. If it was still usable, use it again. And so that's where we're trying to get people to just to remember that that's the point, and do it not through legislation. We've currently got an ordinance in Chicago that requires waste diversion, requires recycling. But have you ever driven by one of those sites and you see that big claw scooping into a house? Tell me that 70% of that is somehow not waste at that point. So we can game the system when it comes to legislation. We can make the paperwork look like whatever we want it to look like. But that's not reuse. That's not waste diversion. That's not recycling. That's creatively looking at ways to make the paperwork look right, as opposed to saying, why not just have a better route that makes sense for everybody involved in it, so that this is encouraged, so that these materials can stay in town and stay usable. Because you know, just making up a rule, once you write something down, there's plenty of ways that you can play around with the wording of it. But actually coming up with a system that says, hey, here's the process. We're going to be upfront and transparent about everything that gets done. Here it is in your house right now. Here it is in your front yard as we take it apart. And here it is at the resale shop. And look at all the people that's helped. The people that work at our company, the people that work at Rebuilding Exchange and Habitat and Reuse Depot, the people that go and shop at those places and have access to those materials at a lower cost than what they would buy new, and often higher quality than what they would buy new in their budget. So once you guys find somebody that gets hurt with this, just let me know and I'll amend what I'm saying. But I've yet to find a victim in any of this.
Sure. Did you guys, with COVID, did your business grow during the COVID time period? Were people more aware of, healthier living, healthier homes, doing better? I'd be curious I know the construction industry just kept going through the roof. I'm busier than ever, right? So I'd be curious to know how it affected you guys.
It's been wild as far as what we haven't slowed down since, well, it's probably been 2 years since we've had a day off, but through that whole time, it would just, project after project. The thing that was a challenge through COVID was just taking care of our people. We immediately implemented PPE and hand washing and all the things that were recommended, but adhering to that. I mean, I know a lot of people are tired of wearing masks now, but imagine being in a labor job and having to wear a mask all day. It's sweaty, it's dirty, you get tired of it, but we instituted very strict rules on that to protect our crew. And even in working with, we social distance as much as we can. But even with people working on the same job site, we've had 0 cases of COVID spreading within a crew. And so the work that we put in really protected our employees and allowed us to continue at the demand that we all got hit with for the past, 12 months.
Love it. Love it. All right. Great answer. So here, let's keep moving on. I'm going to do 2 real quick. We got Eric Schmidt says, who cleans all that wood? And Buzz Holitzer said, and nail straightening. Who's cleaning the wood and straightening out all the nails? I know when I was framing homes, I always had to straighten nails. That was my job when I started.
Well, we've got one of our crews, when we have lumber to do, they're our denailing crew, and we typically cycle those guys out because, as much as I like to think that there's a zen of nail pulling, there's only so long that they can do it before they, start wondering what else to do with that hammer. So we pull all our own wood. We deliver that wood clean. So it shows up looking just like those lumber racks at Home Depot. That's where it shows up to our resale partners. As far as nail straightening, I don't build anything. We don't have to put those nails into anything. So they go right into the bucket. If anybody wants to straighten some nails, we've got plenty of bent ones for you.
Well, here's a follow-up that's perfect for that. Collecting the nails in a large barrel, are they sent to a metal recycling company?
I would assume that that's what we're going to do with them after we figure out what our collection looks like. We'll pull out kind of the square coffin nails and anything that's cool. But absolutely, there's never a chance where you're going to see us throw metal into a dumpster. So if it doesn't have reuse, it gets recycled. But going back to, Mark, you mentioned Cradle to Cradle. I remember reading that book as we were forming this company and kind of figuring out what to do. And that stuck with me. Reuse is better than recycling. And nothing against recycling, but you're still putting extra energy and time and processing into recycling something. If it can be reused, all of that energy and all of that value is just captured right there, and it stays with it and it carries it on to its next use. You don't have to do anything else.
All right, now this next one, I want to see if you're as lucky as the guy in Dublin. The guy was remodeling his house in Dublin and found $190,000 hidden behind bath panels. I guess it would go to the homeowner, wouldn't it?
You always hear about, when you find the bag of cash in the wall, that comes to me, and everybody always thinks that they're going to, hit the jackpot when they remodel their house. We've found some cool treasures, but not like the, bag of coins or anything. Every once in a while we find something cool. We'll be posting some stuff up on our Instagram that we've got. Mostly it's the beer bottles and, old Schlitz cans and all that. But We haven't found that yet, but we found some very cool, like old mobster tunnels that, you know, exit the property and, you know, where's this doorbell go? Oh, I didn't realize there was a panel there. Cool. So, you know, like I said, all the secrets come out, but I've yet to retire on anything that we find inside the walls.
Well, you know what? It takes time. You got to put in, you know, and in your case, it's probably 10,000 years to find it.
We've got a couple of projects starting on Monday, so fingers crossed.
Love it. Sean Santamore says, great stuff. Love your story. Deconstruction hubs are required in every city. I love it. I love it. Let me scroll down. We got a couple more comments, and I think we had a question down here. Joseph Hagnon. Here we go. Are there new systems of joinery that you have investigated making it easier to deconstruct? Well, that's an interesting question, isn't it?
It's a great question. I don't know if we're in a position to impact that. I'll tell you, we haven't had any time to put towards it. But as soon as we're, you know, kind of able to focus on that, I think we'll maybe try and inform things a little bit farther upstream. A lot of the work you guys are doing in terms of building science, you know, is what happens next. You guys are working on the future. The way I look at it is what we're doing is more kind of making sure the past is treated right. You know, making sure that all the work up until now doesn't create problems for us in the future. And if there's anything that we can offer, we'd be happy to do it. And, you know, but I don't know if we're in a position to start telling people how to build houses because we just take them apart.
I will say that pre-COVID, I did a lot of presentations at architecture firms, and that was often one of the things that came up in the conversation was, you know, what can we as architects do to make buildings easier for you to deconstruct? And you had mentioned glue earlier. You know, I kind of just talk on the surface level about it, but I really kind of throw it back on them because they're the ones who are designing the things we aren't. You know, they should think about how things get put together. But it's definitely a conversation that comes up every single time I talk to architects.
So Scandinavia and Japan, they each have a few offsite facilities. And some of the doctrine in Sweden is to have an all wood dwelling with no fasteners. So it's not the metal clips like you find in CLT, etc. It's not the glues. It's true, for lack of a better word, mortise and tenon joints where it's assembled and has the possibility of disassembling. You would spend a lot of work disassembling, but because we're using one material that is growing and shrinking together. And of course, the other thing to note is oftentimes those size of buildings are often under the term we classify as right size. So they're not just thinking of the material life and the expectancy, but they're also thinking of not overbuilding because of the utilitarian mindset. So it does exist to the best of my knowledge, the closest thing we have to that in North America is called the log cabin. There is no MEP at all. There is some chinking that goes on, or chickering in between the logs, but that's the closest thing we have in North America.
Well, you know, it's funny you say that, Mark, but even with the log cabins, they're struggling now because code officials are trying to have them keep up with code and the new R values in these homes. So that's been a big topic of conversation at the code level because they're really struggling with even how beautiful a log home. Now they're telling you got to put another 6 inches of insulation on the inside or what have you. So it's getting hard everywhere.
We need to remember, Dave, that some code is not about health and safety. It's about petroleum lobbyists. I'll be the first one to stand up and point the finger. While I realize code is a minimum, there's an exception to every rule. And the guys that do the cabins are craftsmen, and the air leakage that they encounter and an 11-inch thick continuous insulated wood wall is nothing to bark at. So not that any code official has ever attended anything I've ever done, but if you want to bring into this arena, you better pack a lunch.
That's not true. We had Ryan Colker join some of our stuff, man.
Okay. Yeah, and we do, and we have had Leighton from the beautiful British Columbia code official. There's certain code officials. Right?
Yeah. Well, we're listening supporters, so we love them. All right.
Going off the log cabins, I had the pleasure of being able to tour some of the Kohler facility up in Wisconsin a few weeks back, and actually one of the restaurants that they built, I learned this, is kind of the perfect example of deconstruction and reconstruction.
Right.
Old man Kohler was a big hunter apparently, and he went out and there was this log hunting lodge that he would go to out, and I believe it was Montana, Wyoming, one of those. But he loved it so much that he actually had the entire thing deconstructed. They labeled each and every timber in it, shipped it to Kohler, and rebuilt it exactly as it was. And I'm sitting there looking, and I'll post some pictures of this probably this weekend to just share that and go into the store. But you look around and it's a beautiful building, but they didn't need it in one place. They needed it in another. They took it apart and actually rebuilt it. And that just was, to me, if I could inform the building industry anything of that, go back to a log cabin and apply, new technology to that idea. If that helps, do it. And if not, just remember I take things apart and don't build them, and you don't have to listen to me.
Love it. All right, listen. Hey, we are at 1:25, an hour and 25 minutes. You guys are some chatty folks, man. I love it. We've had a lot of people commenting today, and I think this has been a great conversation. Mark, you got anything you want to wrap up with?
I could go on for hours. I know we're quite a bit over. Did we cover all your slides, Colleen?
Yeah, I don't know if we did.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for the work you do for the community, for the way in which your team, your staff, is included in the business plan, and because that's our community as well, right? It's not just someone you pick up in a parking lot and dial a couple ducats to. It's someone you look after. We didn't go into that, but I'm aware of what you guys do. And the points you drove home and the data you use to support it is epic. So we can't be comfortably numb to it. And you got 6 years under your belts. And I'm looking forward to the next, 40 years you got left to be doing this?
I'm trying to get it right on screen. Everything's backwards, right?
I had your hair when this whole thing got started, Mark. So I don't know. With 40 years on me, might be a little rough.
You know what, though, Steve? Your smile has gotten bigger and your stories have gotten longer.
Yeah.
The stories have definitely gotten longer. If that was possible, we're getting it.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, listen, to both of you, Steve, Colleen, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story with us and really talking about how we can deconstruct versus demolish. And let's keep the landfills from filling up. 50%? That's insane. That's insane. I have to tell you, if you travel in the country, if anybody has smelled a landfill as you drive by it, it's not a pleasant smell, with all the gases coming out. So if you smell that, that's what's happening when we fill these landfills. So my kids in the car, they go, "Oh, Dad, what did you do?" I'm like, "It's not me, it's a landfill." These are the conversations we've been having on our road trip, and we are heading across the country to meet everybody. And I think it would be really cool when we get up to your neck of the woods, Steve and Colleen. Maybe we should do a live show of you guys going through a deconstruct process. We come sometime in the middle and we talk about it and we share the story live on this channel. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
That'd be awesome.
And you could give Dave a couple hours to do some denailing, right? So he can he can have the romantic zen that you mentioned, Steve.
Listen, this is why I have children. They love to work. They're more than happy to unbend bent nails. So, all right, everybody, listen, thank you so much. Today was another amazing day on BS Friday. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I will see you tomorrow morning on Coffee with Dave, where we'll do a recap of this past week and what is coming up. We have some big news getting ready to break. We will be coming to a university near you real soon. We are looking to bring the younger generation back into our industry. And we're going to engage them from high schools, trade schools, and universities, and some big name ones at that. So Loving our journey, loving all the support that you guys give us. Colleen, Steve, we hope you can be part of that journey as we travel this country. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. Dave, Mark, good to see you guys. Thank you very much.
We'll come back to you right after the outro. Mark, you're amazing, as always. Thanks for pulling this one together. I don't know what I do without you. I can't wait to. I've never met Mark in person. We're going to hug one of these days. Fair enough. All right. We're going to end right on that right now. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye now.